My name is Lily, and I'm 26 years old. I'm single and don't have a full-time job. Since middle school, I've been a bit of a loner. I attended high school but eventually dropped out, so my education stopped there. Since then, I've been living with my parents, working part-time, and taking on odd jobs online. I have an older brother, Max, who's 29. He's the complete opposite of me. Athletic, popular, and very social. Growing up, he made it clear he didn't want anyone to know about me. He never invited friends over and would pretend not to know me if we crossed paths in public. I used to feel hurt, but I eventually figured it was his problem, not mine. When Max left for college, I stopped worrying about it. Years later, the news came that Max was getting married. It wasn't surprising, considering his age and lifestyle. He brought his fiancée, Sarah, to meet our parents. I happened to be home that day and joined them in the living room. "Mom, Dad, I'm home," Max announced as he arrived. When he saw me with our parents, he hesitated, looking confused. "Sorry to intrude," Sarah said, glancing at me with curiosity. It was obvious Max hadn't told her about me. My mom quickly introduced herself and my dad, but neither of them mentioned me. Sarah remained polite, though still unsure of who I was. My parents had always been hard on me, constantly comparing me to Max. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" was a common refrain. Over time, the criticism turned into accusations of being a leech for living at home. During Max and Sarah's visit, I tried to join the conversation, but my mom whispered to me, "Why are you here? Go back to your room." I stayed, though it felt like a mistake. Max ignored me entirely, introducing Sarah to our parents, but acting as if I didn't exist. When the topic turned to small talk, Max suddenly asked me, "What do you do, Lily?" Before I could answer, he added, "Sarah, you don't need to talk to her. Don't bother." My mom chimed in, "She's just a distant relative." Hearing my parents and Max dismiss me so easily broke something inside me. By the time their visit ended, I felt invisible. Max and Sarah's wedding came and went. Soon after, they moved into a newly built house. A housewarming party was planned, and we received an invitation. I noticed my name wasn't listed, but my mom insisted, "You're coming." Reluctantly, I agreed. On the day of the party, it rained heavily. We took a taxi to their house, but when we arrived, neither Max nor Sarah came out to greet us. My parents rushed inside, leaving me to pay the fare. When I reached the door, Sarah greeted me with a dismissive, "Who are you?" "I'm Lily, Max's sister," I said. Sarah's expression turned cold. "Oh, the high school dropout. We didn't invite the parasite living off her parents." She said it with a smile, but her words stung. Max appeared, looking annoyed. "What are you doing here?" "I told them not to invite you," he said. I asked carefully, "Would it have been better if I hadn't come?" "Yes," Max replied without hesitation. "You're a stranger?" Sarah added, "Not finishing high school doesn't count as an education, right? Can you leave now?" Soaked and humiliated, I turned to leave. With no taxi in sight, I walked through the rain back home. When my parents returned later, they looked pleased. "Why did you leave so suddenly?" "You're useless," my mom said. "Make sure to give them the gift later." "You're an adult now," my dad added. I had bought a gift for the party, but decided to keep it. When I asked Max for their address to send it, his reply was short, "I don't give my address to strangers." It was clear that my family would never treat me differently, so I decided to leave. Using my savings from part-time jobs, I rented a small place and began streaming videos online to make money. I had always been interested in trends and soon built a following. Within months, I was earning tens of thousands per month, enough to cover my expenses and invest. Eventually, I started a small business importing and selling products, which thrived. For the first time, I felt fulfilled and happy. A few months later, I received an unexpected call from my parents. "We need your help with Max," they said. "Why?" I asked, surprised. Max had just built a new house and seemed to be doing well. Slowly, they explained. After moving in, Max began hosting extravagant parties, inviting his bosses, clients, and Sarah's friends. At one of these parties, someone pitched an investment opportunity. Trusting them, Max poured in a significant amount of money and lost it all. Hearing this, I felt a mix of emotions. Despite everything, they were turning to me, the parasite they had dismissed, for help. For the first time, I realized I held all the cards. My success had made me strong, and their disdain no longer had power over me. I was shocked to hear that Max once had a good job. If he had just kept working steadily, he wouldn't have made such a colossal mistake. When I asked who recommended the investment, wondering if it had been a scam, my parents assured me it wasn't. They said it was one of Sarah's friends, someone they completely trusted. "How much do you need?" I asked, feeling a knot of unease forming in my stomach. When they told me the amount, I was floored. It was far beyond what any regular employee could afford. "Is this really how much Max needs?" Asked again, still unsure. My parents hesitated before admitting that they, too, had been offered the same investment. "I can't come up with that kind of money easily."
"Sorry," I said.
But they wouldn't let me end the conversation. "We're your real family. Help us out in times like these, like real family would," they argued. "Too little, too late. Sorry, but I'm busy. And I'm a stranger to you, right?" I said, then hung up. Later, to my surprise, they somehow found out where I worked. My parents, Max, and Sarah showed up at my office while I was in a business meeting. My secretary notified me, saying, "There are guests here for you, President." Confused, I replied, "I don't have any other meetings." "Who are they?" Uneasy, I excused myself and went to the reception area. There, I found Sarah, Max, and my parents waiting. "You're running a company now?" Max sneered as he looked around. "Well, it's much smaller than where I work." "Who are you?" I asked, pretending not to recognize them. "What's with the attitude?" Max snapped, losing his temper. Mom stepped in, speaking as if her demands were entirely reasonable. "We talked about this before. We need your support. You can help us out, right?" "Yeah," Sarah chimed in. "It's an important time for our family. I'm about to give birth, and the baby isn't growing well. We need a good doctor." Sarah, Dad, and Max piled on, acting like it was my duty to pay off everyone's debts. A few of my employees passed by, glancing at the commotion with concern. Hoping to end this quickly, I said, "Please leave. You're causing a disturbance." Max exploded. "A disturbance? We came all this way, and this is how you treat families?" He made a scene, addressing my employees. "Do you all know this girl? She dropped out of middle school. She's a shut-in. She doesn't belong here." My employees, however, didn't react as Max expected. One of them said, "We know. Everyone knows the president's background. We respect her for it." Another added, "She hires people like us, from situations like hers." "Is there a problem?" Max, who only associated with highly educated and wealthy people, looked stunned. He couldn't come up with a response. Instead, Dad stepped in, muttering, "What a pathetic company. Just a bunch of losers." Max seized the opportunity. "Exactly. A company like this can't be any good for business." At that moment, the president of the company I'd been meeting with entered the reception area. He'd likely overheard the shouting. Max's face turned pale when he saw the man and quickly lowered his gaze. "What's wrong, Max?" Sarah asked. "My brother, idiot. Don't say my name," Max whispered, but it was too late. "Max?" "Oh, it's you," the company president said, walking up to him. He scrutinized Max. "You're the guy who's always falling short. Mr. Long, the division manager, right? We owe a lot to your company." Max started sweating profusely, clearly panicked. I guess I'm not that memorable, since we're not a big company," Max stammered. The president smiled coldly. "Not memorable? Funny, considering how many times you've caused issues. You're unforgettable." Max froze, wide-eyed, as my parents and Sarah fell silent, sensing trouble. I turned to the president and said, "I'm sorry for wasting your time. I'll have them leave." "Are you sure?" "I have time today, so I don't mind waiting," the president replied politely. "No, they're not my family," I said firmly, glancing at them. "They're complete strangers." After that, my parents and Max's family were escorted out of the office, visibly shaken by the encounter. As for how they discover my workplace, I later found out Sarah was the culprit. She had seen a photo of me in the media and realized I was Max's shut-in sister she'd heard about. She then told Max and my parents, suggesting they ask me for money. But there was more to uncover. Sarah had a friend well-versed in investments, who turned out to be her ex-boyfriend. They were still involved, and the child Sarah was carrying wasn't Max's, it was her ex's. Sarah had also been taking money from other men under her ex's guidance. When the truth came out, Max was devastated. He and Sarah divorced, and she and her ex-boyfriend were arrested for fraud. However, the money they had stolen would likely never be recovered. Max's work life spiraled further. He was transferred to a low-ranking department and eventually resigned. My father's situation wasn't much better. After losing his temper with a subcontractor, his company investigated him and fired him. It turned out he had a history of belittling others, saying things like, "Junior high or high school graduates are worthless," just like how he used to treat me. Now, both Max and my father contact me, saying things like, "Let's live together. We're family." I've barred them from entering my office building, so they can't show up uninvited anymore. No matter how much they plead, my answer remains the same. I don't know you. You're complete strangers to me,